Okay, so we have an update in the Alien Enemies Act litigation regarding the individuals who were removed from the United States to El Salvador. I say individuals because we know that it wasn't just men. We also know that they weren't necessarily only Venezuelan nationals. And I say removed because we know that they weren't deported. So, today, the Trump administration filed an emergency appeal with the Supreme Court. And in this appeal, they essentially are saying that the judiciary is overstepping its bounds in curtailing a power granted to the executive branch under kind of wartime law, which is the Alien Enemies Act. And they're saying, hey, listen, there is a separation of powers here, and the executive powers of national security cannot be limited by the judiciary. One, it's not a war, right? So there's that. But two, yes, they can. That's the point of checks and balances. That's why we have different branches of government, so that no one branch can just act without or with impunity and go off the rails and just do a bunch of illegal crap. So it's interesting that they bring up the separation of powers when the separation of powers is actually doing exactly what it's supposed to do, which is to check those other branches of government. So we will see if the Supreme Court decides to hear the emergency appeal and whether they're going to lift that lower court's injunction or not. I think this will be a true test here of the Supreme Court. See where the Supreme Court falls in supporting, the Trump administration. I think the Trump administration lacks a lot of legal basis for what it's doing. However, I wouldn't be surprised if the majority conservative court somehow finds the facts sufficient to support the legal basis that finds that, they are acting within the confines of the Alien Enemies Act. So we will see. This is very interesting because I think it's going to be very indicative of what's to come for the next 4 years in terms of litigation and limiting the executive's, broad attempts of overreach, right? And pushing the limits of the law.